Bhajiba bolia esheshum sadikari. Bulia rohile tume obidyara bhare. You came into this world of birth and death saying, My Lord, I will certainly worship you. But you have forgotten this promise and remained in great ignorance. Tumara loite ami hoinu obatar, ami bina bandhu ara keache tomar. I have descended just to save you, except for me, who is your friend. Eneche aushadimaya, nashi baru lagi, Harinama Mahamantra lau tulimagi. I have brought the medicine to eradicate the disease of illusion. Now pray for this Harinam Mahamantra and take it. Bhakti Vinod Prabhu Chodane Pudya se Harinama Mantra Loilo Mogia. Thakur Bhakti Vinod fell at the lotus feet of Lord Gauranga, and after begging for the holy name, he received that Mahamantra. So now we will recite Kali Santarana Upanishad together. This time we are going to go through it all together, one time, without me saying it first. Starting with text 1. Everyone has a copy? So text 1. Hari Om Vaparante Narara Brahmanam Jagama Katam Bhagavangam Payatan Kalim Santareyamiti Sahovacha Brahma Sadhu Prishtosmi Sarvashruti Rahasyam Gopyam Tatchinu Yena Kali Samsaram Tarishyasi Bhagavatta Adi Purushasha Narayanasya Namocharana Matvena Nirgutta Kalir Bhavati Narada Puna Prapracha Tannama Kimiti Sahovachya Hiranyagarbha Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Iti Shorishakam Nam Kali Kalmashanashanam Nata Paratrupayo Sarvavedeshu Drishyati Iti Sorishakalasya Jivasya Varna Vinashanam Tata Prakashate Brahma Mega Paida Virasmi Mandalivati Punar Narada Prapacha Bhagavan Kosya Vidhirati Tam Hovacha Nasya Vidhirati Sarvada Suchirva Patam Brahmana Salokatam Samipatam Sarupatam Sayurjatamiti Yadasya Sorishikasya Sardhatrikotir Japati Tata Brahmahatyam Tarati Virahatyam Svanastayat Puttobhavati Pittadeva Manushanama Pakarat Puttobhavati Sarvadharma Prityaga Papa Sadhya Suchidama Puyat Sadhyo Muchyate Iti Upanishad. So Friday we stopped at text 8. Narada Muni is asking another question. Punar Narada Prapacha Bhagavan Kosya Vidhirati. Narada again asked, O Lord, what is its procedure like? So I explained this word vidhi. Also we use this word in the context of devotional service. Vidhi, and the opposite word is nisheda. So vidhi means a positive rule or regulation. Those things which we should do that are recommended for us. Like, for example, 4 regulative principles, chanting 16 rounds a day. These would be called vidhi. And then nisheda, well, actually we ought to say it this way. Chanting 16 rounds a day, that is the vidhi, and then the nisheda, the negative, the don't, would be don't engage in gambling, intoxication, illicit sex, meat eating. These would be restrictions, restraints. So Narada Muni is asking what is the vidhi, and the context of Narada Muni's question, because he's asking about the Yuga Dharma, the Dharma for the Kali Yuga. So, in previous ages, start with the Satya Yuga or Krita Yuga. So the Dharma was Vishnu Dhyana, meditation upon Lord Vishnu. The yoga system, Ashtanga yoga system, was utilized for that end, for meditating upon the Lord, realizing the Lord in the heart. So, in yoga, yam, niyam, do's and don'ts, and they are very, very strict. So the yogi in the Satyuga, he had to do his meditation in a prescribed place. This is also mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, must be a sacred place. So he must stay at the bank of the Ganges, or he must stay in the Himalaya mountains, or in some sacred forest, Naimisharanya, for example, Jarikanda, and these places great sages used to stay. And because the lifespan in the Satyuga was very long, up to 100,000 years. So therefore, one can just imagine how much time such a person in that age would be meditating. Actually, at least 60,000 years. So you're in TM. What do they do? 15, 20 minutes a day? 15 minutes a day. Yeah, so 60,000 years. This is serious yoga. And it was unbroken. They would sit down, they would meditate and go through these 8 stages of yoga. Yam, niyam, asan, pranayam. These first 4, that constitutes what is known as Hatha Yoga. And then onward, Pratyahara, next stage, to withdraw the senses, pull back the senses from the sense objects, so that there is no more perception of sense objects. Of course, that is aided very much when one does his yoga meditation in a very lonely place, sacred place. Pratyahara, and then dharana, concentration, dhyana, fixed meditation, and then finally samadhi, transcendence. And then in this samadhi state, one can gradually come to perceive the Paramatma in the heart. So this would take a long, long time to master these stages. That's why 60,000 years was required. And pranayam means, you see, people practice Hatha Yoga, or they call it Hatha Yoga. But pranayam, control of the breath, ultimately means to suspend the breath, to suspend the incoming breath into the outgoing breath. And one lives on breath alone. Because what is this body? According to Ayurveda, this body the life is sustained in this body by pranavayu, by air. So one who knows this, who is able to access this confidential storehouse of energy in the pran, he doesn't need to eat, he doesn't need to drink, he doesn't need to utilize any grosser form of nourishment, because air is subtle compared to fire, water and earth, and food and drink. They're more gross. So this is the 4th stage, the last stage of the Hatha Yoga, pranayama. So who is doing that now? You see, they just like that a few times. We call it pranayama. So, yes, so in this yoga practice as it was at Satyuga. The vidhi was very, very strict, so that one could achieve success. Otherwise, shramiheve kevalam, waste of time. And then in the next stage, Treta Yuga, the dharma is sacrifice, yajna. And this too, nothing like the sacrifice now, which is so simple. In those days, the king would preside over the yajnas, and his entire treasury was at the disposal of the brahmanas. To perform a yajna in the Treta Yuga was like nowadays when a nation embarks on a space program. Actually, it's a very good comparison, because the idea of space program also is to reach other planets, go to the moon, go to Mars, see what's going on there, see if there's anything valuable that we can bring back. Of course, they failed in that, investing billions and billions of dollars to bring back a carton of rocks, which are not any different. That was one of Prabhupada's objections. When he heard that they claimed to have gone to the moon, Prabhupada said, then where are the jewels? They should find jewels on the moon. It's a heavenly planet. But they just brought back ordinary rocks that you can find in any desert on earth. And that's why Prabhupada suspected they filmed the whole thing in the desert in Arizona somewhere. Anyway, the endeavors of a space program can only be pursued by a very wealthy, powerful nation. So we see only a few countries have space program. New Zealand not. Too small. Has to be a big... Now China has space program. China, Russia, USA of course, and Europe. So Japan also, I think, may start. So this is to send one of these rockets up into space. This is similar, you see. It's a Kali Yuga replication of yajna, fruitless of course, nishpal. But to send one of these rockets up into space, costing so much money. So similarly, to perform a yajna in the Vedic age, so much money. Gold was offered into the fire. Jewels were offered into the fire. So much dakshin was given to the brahmanas, the expert brahmanas, who were master performers of the yajna. But yajna in those days actually had success. Just like we see in the great yajna of Prithu Maharaj in Canto 6 of Srimad Bhagavatam. Lord Vishnu himself appeared, being pleased with that yajna. The 4 Kumaras appeared. And everyone could see. You see? Nowadays everyone looks on television, they just see a stream of smoke going up and out of sight and gone. Sometimes up there, poof. Like it happened one time. The thing blew up. Also recently coming back down, burned up. But in the yajnas of old, the devatas, the controllers of higher planets, they would appear there in the sacrificial arena. And everyone, all the populace of the kingdom could see. So, certainly in these Vedic yajnas, there's so many rules and regulations. And then in Dwapara Yuga, deity worship in Dwarka Yuga is much, much, much more strict than anything we know today. Of course, we have a very nice standard of deity worship in ISKCON, that's true. But the deity worship of Dwapara Yuga was not only more strict, but it was requiring many, many brahmanas to be on the staff of the pujari. And the king also was funding the temple worship, so it was very, very, very opulent. And again, in those days, I think I mentioned this last time, It was not so unusual in Dwapara Yuga for the deity to speak to his devotees. There's so many narratives we have from Dwapara Yuga in which the deity would speak. Sometimes the deity would walk. Shakshi Gopal story. The deity walked all the way from Vrindavan to South India. Banki Bihari and Vrindavan also. That's why they only have darshan at Banki Bihari. They open the curtains very briefly and then close them, because one time so many devotees were there in great ecstasy seeing the Lord. Such an outpouring of transcendental emotion. And Lord Banki Bihari, he couldn't restrain himself. He walked down off the altar to be with his devotees. He walked into the... Can you imagine? He came down off the altar to be with his devotees, to touch them, to embrace them. And then they had to rebuild the whole temple. Because now he was over there instead of... So the whole temple had to move. So Narada Muni's concern was, he's thinking of these people of the age of Kali. And that is their special, shall we say, disqualification. We normally say special qualification, but disqualification in this case, that they cannot follow the vidhis of previous ages. That's why there is such a thing as this Kali Yuga, most fallen age, the age in which people find it very, very hard to keep even the simplest regulation. There, just comes to mind, I was on the BBT library party in the 1970s. We were traveling to different universities in the USA and later in Europe, and offering professors and libraries, the academicians, Srila Prabhupada's books. So myself and another godbrother, we went to the University of Syracuse in New York State. And at this place there was one professor with the name Agananda Bharati. Now he was not an Indian by birth, he was actually Austrian from Vienna. But in the 1950s he left Austria and went to India and entered one of the Mayavadi mats in the line of Shankaracharya, the Bharati mat. There's 10 grades of sannyas. So one of them is Bharati. You know, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted initiation in the Bharati order. His spiritual master, his sannyasi spiritual master, sannyasi guru, was Keshava Bharati. So this person also took Bharati sannyas. And but he made a name for himself in India and elsewhere. But later on he retired from being a sannyasi and became a professor. So I saw an interview with him in some magazine, and they were discussing, the reporter was asking him, so you're a sannyasi, so to my knowledge sannyasis follow very strict rules and regulations, but you don't seem to be yourself so strict in what you're doing. So then this Agananda Bharati, he replied, yes, because now it is Kali Yuga. He said, this you have to remember, that it is Kali Yuga now. So we don't follow in this day and age. Previous ages we had to follow, but now in this age you can do what you like. And he said, therefore I'm glad to have been born in Kali Yuga. He said, I would rather eat salami which, is very popular in Austria. He said, if I was in a previous age, I would be forced to be vegetarian, but now I can eat salami. It's much better to be in Kali Yuga. So this is the condition of this age. Although people sometimes are adopting formally some order like sannyas or becoming a priest of some sort of religious significance, but in their private life they're unable to follow anything strictly. So this was Narada Muni's concern. He was thinking of the vidhis of previous ages, previous dharmas, and considering these Kali Yuga people can't follow. So therefore he's asking, Punar Narada Prapacha, Bhagavan Kosya Vidhidati, what will be the vidhi, what will be the rules and regulations that a person is expected to follow if he takes up this chanting of Hare Krishna? So now we will hear Lord Brahma's answer. Tamovacha nasya vidhirati sarvada suchira suchyava patan brahmana salokatam samipatam surupatam syujitamiti. So please repeat after me. This is text 9. Tam, to him, ha, indeed, uvacha, spoke, na, no, asya, its, vidhi, procedure, riti, way, sarvada, always, shuchir, pure, ashuchir, impure, ma, or patan, chanting, brahmana, seeker of truth, salokatam, staying with Lord Krishna, samipatam, associating with the Lord, surupatam, being like the Lord in form, sayujatam, merging in the Lord, ati, attains. Translation. Lord Brahma immediately replied, there is no set procedure for chanting this Mahamantra. A seeker of truth can chant, whether pure or impure, and attains 4 types of liberations, such as staying with Lord Krishna, or associating with Lord Krishna, or being like Lord Krishna in form, or merging in the Lord's effulgence. So please repeat after me. Lord Brahma immediately replied, there is no set procedure for chanting this Mahamantra. A seeker of truth can chant, whether pure or impure, and attains 4 types of liberations, such as staying with Lord Krishna, or associating with Lord Krishna, or being like Lord Krishna in form, or merging in the Lord's effulgence. Yes, so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has said exactly the same thing. Nam namakari bahuda nijisharva shaktish. So the first point is that the Lord has hundreds and millions of names, and in every one of them He's invested His full transcendental potency. So the holy name is all powerful. So nam namakari bahuda nijisharva shaktish tatrapata nimatas smaranena kala. And there is no hard and fast rule. Nakala means not according to kala, desha, patra, time, place, circumstance. There are no such regulations that say, for example, that you should chant Hare Krishna only at a certain time of day. Of course, it is recommended to chant in the Brahma Muhurta hour. That is very good, but there is no such statement that that is the only time to chant. Or like in Mahaprabhu, just before Mahaprabhu appeared. So the Brahmanas, the ritualistic Brahmanas, they had practically forbidden the chanting of the holy name to the people, telling them, this was their argument, it's Kali Yuga, and you're all very fallen and sinful. So if you chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, you'll offend the Lord because you're so sinful. And if you offend the Lord, then you'll be finished. He'll be angry with you and there's no hope of anything. So the only time that these ritualistic brahmanas permitted the people to chant the holy name was while they were bathing in the Ganga, because when in the Ganga, then the idea is, then you're pure. So then you can chant. And that's why on that night of the eclipse, on the appearance day of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Gaur Purnima, so everyone was in the Ganga, because eclipse, solar eclipse or lunar eclipse is considered in Vedic culture to be very inauspicious. Everything becomes contaminated. So if one is not living near a sacred river, then one should just shut oneself up in the house. The deity, the temples are closed. The deity doors are shut. And if one is near a sacred river, then one should go into the river during the time of the eclipse. And because the Brahmanas had permitted, this is the only time that you can chant. So therefore everyone is chanting that night. That was very special. Everyone was roaring, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So it was in these conditions that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in this world. And of course Mahaprabhu's mission was to get everyone to chant all the time, not just when they're in the Ganga. But this was the idea of these ritualistic brahmanas, that there are restrictions according to time, place and circumstance, even for chanting the holy name. And we can see here, this is the statement of Lord Brahma. So Brahma is the first Brahmana. The first Brahmana. He's directly the son of Garbhodakashaya Vishnu, born of the Supreme Brahman himself, but moreover not just born, not just a Jata Brahmana, but he was initiated by the Lord and received Vedic knowledge from him and became such a qualified spiritual master that he instructs all the great sages and the demigods of the universe. So Brahma is the first Brahmana. All the Brahmana gotras, the Brahmana families, they ultimately, if they're real Brahmana families, they must be able to be traced back to Brahma. So here is Brahma saying, there is no nasya vidhirati. There is no restriction. There is no set ritualistic formula for chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. No particular time, no particular place, no particular circumstances. So Mahaprabhu has said the same thing, nakala, no time, and then we should think in parentheses, place, circumstance, imposed on the chanting. And it was on this principle that Srila Prabhupada brought the chanting of Hare Krishna to such a fallen place as New York in 1965. So in those days in America, people had no idea, really, very, very unclear idea, anything from India. I mean, if you would, in those days, ask someone what they thought of India, well, of course, they would first of all think millions of starving people, and they're starving because they don't eat cows, and they have these fakirs who do the Indian rope trick. They make the rope go up, and then they climb, and they disappear. Pretty much what people thought of India. And Mahatma Gandhi too. They knew about. But Srila Prabhupada came bringing this authentic Vaishnava way of life, devotional service, exactly according to Bhagavad Gita, and of course the chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra, which was all completely new to the people. They had, really no idea. I spoke with my godbrother Umapati Maharaj, who was one of the very, very first to attend Srila Prabhupada's lectures at 26 Second Avenue. And he was a Buddhist. He had been a Buddhist. So he knew something about Buddhism. And he said, whenever I looked at what Swamiji was doing, there was always something that didn't fit. You see, because he had a shaved head. I knew that from Buddhism. But there was something in the back. This that was, what is that? It doesn't fit. And then they have the robes. But he had these brahmacharis wear the robe. So I was familiar with these robes. But then there's also this tail in the back part of the dhoti, which is not there. So he said, I was always confused. I could never make out what's really going on here. So, but Srila Prabhupada simply stressed the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So, in those early days, when Srila Prabhupada would hold the evening program, the first 45 minutes to 1 hour was simply chanting the same melody. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. 45 minutes to 1 hour. And everyone was invited to bring their favorite musical instrument. They'd bring different drums and tambourines and clappers, and some were playing on horn and guitar, of course, and joining in. And then Prabhupada took this kirtan to Tompkins Square Park, and it would go on there for hours and hours, and simply focusing on the chanting. And the prasadam, of course. And so these two things, they purify the heart, they purify the mind. And it is by this experience of purification then that we can perceive what is Krishna consciousness. It is not an intellectual thing. Prabhupada used to say like that. It is not something to be, you can't grasp it by the intellect. The intellect also, in other words, there's something to grasp for the intellect. It's not that it's anti-intellectual, but the intellect, when it is impure, it also cannot understand. So, first of all, senses, mind, intelligence, consciousness, everything must be purified. And so we chant Hare Krishna. And again, there's no consideration of, like I said, New York, 1965. How far away could you get from the social, cultural context of the chanting of Hare Krishna? You couldn't get any farther away. In India, they know the chanting. In Kumbh Mela, people are chanting Hare Krishna. I've seen that myself. Not just Gaudiya Vaishnavas, but sadhus from Rishikesh. They sit down and they chant Hare Krishna. Usually they chant Hare Rama first and then Hare Krishna. But they chant it. It is known. But New York in the 1960s, totally different circumstance, totally different place. But on the strength of Lord Brahma's own statement, Srila Prabhupada brought the Mahamantra to New York. And, as it says here, Suchira Asuchira, whether one is pure or impure, one should chant. And what is the result? Patan Brahmana, that person who is on the spiritual path. Patan Brahmana means spiritual path. By this chanting alone, Salokatam, Samipatam, Sarupatam, Suyujatamiti. 4 kinds of liberation are mentioned. Often we find, like in the Bhagavatam, 5 kinds of liberation. There's one not mentioned in this list, Sarishti. But Sarishti can be subsumed or brought under samipya. Samipya means to have a personal relationship, personal association with the Lord. And sarishti means to share in the Lord's opulences. So if one has association with the Lord as his servant, then one naturally shares in his opulences. So in this list we can just think that Shrishti is there, included in Samipatam. So Salokatam, to attain the planet of the Lord. Samipatam, to achieve association with the Lord. Sarupatam, to achieve a transcendental Satchitananda form like that of the Lord. And then Sayuja. Now this is interesting. Now in this translation, this is as we understand from Srila Prabhupada, that Sayuja, Brahma Sayuja, means to merge into the effulgence of the Lord. So then someone may ask, well, but is that a goal to be desired in chanting Hare Krishna? No, not for the Vaishnavas, but it is not only the Vaishnavas who chant Hare Krishna. As I said, in Kumbh Mela, different kinds of sadhus, they're often Mayavadis, impersonalists, but they still chant Hare Krishna. So in the Harinam Chintamani, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, when a Mayavadi chants the holy name of the Lord, he's maintaining his Mayavadi conception, but he chants Hare Krishna. So that chanting will bring his soul into the rays of the Brahmajyoti, and he will merge there. So, but there is another sense to this word, Sayuja, and that is given by Sripad Madhvacharya, who is the founder of the Brahma Sampradaya in this Kali Yuga. So, our International Society for Krishna Consciousness, this Gaudiya Vaishnav Sampradaya, is associated with the Brahma Sampradaya of Madhvacharya. So Madhvacharya was, of all the great acharyas, he was the most radically, extremely anti-Mayavadi. So, for example, where, I think I've mentioned it already, we have our Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. So, among the Mayavadis, they have their Mahavakya. That's their great slogan from the Vedas, expressing the Siddhanta of Mayavad, and that is Tattvamasi. So Tattvamasi means I am the same, I am that, I am Brahman, I am God. Tattvamasi. Now this Tattvamasi is taken from the Vedic literature, some passage in the Vedic literature. And Shankaracharya has enshrined this particular phrase as being the most important statement of all Vedic literature, that Tattvamasi, I am the same as God, I am God. But Madhvacharya, he has said, Shankaracharya has not quoted it properly. So Madhvacharya has argued that phrase, in the context of the complete sentence, should be understood as Atattvamasi. Now this is very radical. Very radical. It means, in other words, it means I am not the same. This is very radical. It makes the scholars squirm. You see, it's possible. It's a possible interpretation, but they think it is forced. They think, oh, why is he arguing like this? But this was Madhvacharya. He was very, very, whatever Shankaracharya argued, he would argue the exact opposite. He was so. That's why you always see Madhvacharya, big, stocky, sadhu, Vaishnava sannyasi, and he's always keeping 2 fingers in the air like this, holding up 2 fingers, which means we're not one. There is always 2, the Lord and the soul, and they never become one. And oneness, of course, Advaita, that's the essence of the Mayavadi philosophy, Tattvamasi. So anyway, I'm speaking about Madhvacharya. So Sripad Madhvacharya, he has explained this Sayujya also completely opposite to the Mayavadi. Shankaracharya has said Sayujya is the supreme liberation because there you merge, ekatvam, merge into the impersonal effulgence. They take this impersonal effulgence to be the supreme Brahman. And so Sayujya means to merge into that effulgence, become one. So Sayujya Mukti is glorified by the Mayavadis. But Madhvacharya has denied that Sayujya is merging. His explanation is that it is a sharing. The liberated soul shares the Swarupananda of the Lord. That means the Lord's own bliss, His own ecstasy in being the Lord. So the liberated devotee who is completely subordinated himself, because this is the requirement, one has to become totally submissive to Krishna, to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, totally surrendered to Him, and then one can be blessed by the Lord to share His own Swarupananda. So it's a sharing, it's not a oneness, and the devotee, the liberated devotee, he retains his individuality. There's a relationship. But by the grace of the Lord, he's also tasting the Lord's own bliss. Now Jiva Goswami, writing in his Priti Sandarbha, he has also affirmed this explanation of Madhvacharya. This is also a way of understanding Sayujya Mukti. But Jiva Goswami has also said that this merging into the rays of the effulgence of the Lord is also a kind of Sayujya. So this, I just wanted to point out that, and it's particularly interesting because this verse says 4 kinds of liberation, and Madhvacharya also speaks only of 4 kinds of liberation. So that is also a way of understanding this verse. That all the 4 kinds of liberation mentioned here may be understood as being personal. But it can also be impersonal. That is not the desired goal of any devotee, to merge into oneness with the Brahmajyoti by chanting Hare Krishna. But the Mayavadis may achieve that. So we can move on to text 10. Yadasya sorishikasya sardhachikotir japati tata brahmahatyam tarati virahatyam svarnasteyat putto bhavati pitta deva manushanama pakadat putto bhavati. Please repeat. Yada, when, asya, as this, Sorishakasya, collection of 16 names, Sardhatrikotir, 3.5 crore times, 35 million times, Japati, chant quietly, Tada, then, Brahmahatyam, killing a Brahmin, Virahatyam, killing a warrior, Svarnasteyat, stealing of gold, Puto, free from, Bhavati, becomes, Pitta Deva, ancestors, Manushanam, of human beings, Apakarat, harmful deeds, Puto, free from, Bhavati becomes. Translation: when one chants this Mahamantra of 16 names 3.5 crore times, or 35 million times, then he absolves himself from the killing of a Brahmana, assassination of warrior, or stealing of gold, or the harmful deeds to forefathers or any other human beings. Please repeat. When one chants this Mahamantra of 16 names 3.5 crore times, 35 million times, then he absolves himself from the killing of a Brahmana, assassination of a warrior, or stealing of gold, or the harmful deeds to forefathers or any other human beings. So now we should not misunderstand that Lord Brahma is now giving some sort of formula whereby if we chant Hare Krishna, then we can become free of sins. Then business finished. Actually, this instruction is very much, it reminds me very much of an instruction that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave to one wealthy, he was formerly a wealthy landowner in Bengal. His name was Subudhi Roy. Now Subudhi Roy, he had taken under his care Nawab Hussain Shah when Nawab Hussain Shah was a small boy. And sometimes, because he had a fatherly relationship with the Nawab, so sometimes he was correcting him. This was done out of love. And Nawab Hussain Shah was very grateful to Subudhi Roy for showing him, keeping him on a disciplined path as a youngster. So on the strength of his good upbringing, Nawab Hussain Shah rose to the top and became the Nawab of all of Bengal. And so he was very grateful to Subudhi Roy. But it so happened that once Subudhi Roy had given, of course now it's all very controversial, but in those days, 500 years ago, it wasn't so unusual for a guardian, for a parent, for one who had authority over a child to sometimes give the child a whack with a bamboo cane. And so Subudhi Roy used to do that if the young Nawab was not behaving himself. And once he gave him such a whack that it left a mark on his back. So after Hussain Shah grew up and became the Nawab, the Muslim ruler of Bengal, and he got married, so his wife, the Begum, she saw this mark on his back, and she asked, where did this come from? And so he explained, when I was a boy, Subudhi Roy, he was taking charge of me, and he hit me with a bamboo stick and left this mark. And she was very devoted to her husband, and sometimes in a woman's devotion to someone she loves, she can become very spiteful towards anyone who has done harm to that person. So she said, well, now you are the king, you are the leader of Bengal, you have full authority. If he did that to you, you should kill him now. You should have him killed, executed. And the Nawab said, no, it's not like that, please. I'm very grateful to him. I learned so much from him. He took good care of me. I could have gone wrong in those years so easily, but he kept me on the straight path. And so I'm always grateful to him. So then the Begum said, all right, fair enough, but I cannot see this mark on your back and have a peaceful heart. Something, you have to do something. So my suggestion is, he's a Hindu. You make him to a Muslim. That will kill him, in a sense. Just like we say, we preach to kill the demoniac mentality. So she wanted his identity as a Hindu to be killed. He would be a Muslim. So in those days it was very easy, because the Brahmanas, these caste Brahmanas, they had in many places in India they had enforced very strict, actually absurd kinds of caste rules. And the Muslims, of course, they were mlechas, untouchable. So even the most casual type of contact, physical contact between a Muslim and a Hindu would result in that Hindu losing his, as they would say, losing his caste. So it was not such a difficult thing to for a Muslim to make a Hindu into a Muslim. He just had to, so to speak, contaminate him, and then the Brahmanas would say, you're ostracized, you cannot be in Hindu society anymore, unless you do some very extreme, and we'll get to that, what kind of extreme penance to win one's way back. But generally, often that would be impossible, so then the person would have to become a Muslim. He would not want to, do those things that the Brahmin said that he would have to do to be returned as a Hindu. So he would just become a Muslim. So what the Nawab did was he invited Subodhi Roy to a meal, and Subodhi Roy accepted. And after the Nawab took his meal, and then he called for his hands to be washed, and with those hands he flicked water on Subodhi Roy, those wet hands, and the water sprinkled on Subodhi Roy, and that means he was contaminated. So then Subodhi Roy, he went, it is said in Chaitanya Charitamrita that he wasn't really so disturbed by this. He actually, because obviously he would have been getting old at this time, since Nawab was now king, and he had been the protector of Nawab when he was a boy. So Subodhi Roy was older, and he was thinking of retiring. So now he took the opportunity. He gave up his position as landowner, and he traveled around to different holy places, and he was speaking with different Brahmanas, presenting his case to them. This is what has happened to me. I was sprinkled by a Muslim. So some Brahmanas told him, there's only one thing you can do then to become relieved of this pap. You have to drink boiling hot ghee till you die. So he wasn't very thrilled with that idea, to say the least. So then he went to some other Brahmins, and they said, oh, it's no big thing. This is not a big thing. Don't worry about it. So Prabhupada writes in the purport, this was going on, and it still goes on today. Different Brahmins say different things. In fact, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he made a joke of this. In one of his writings, he describes a man going to his village Brahmana. And actually the man is going with some clever intention in his mind, but he comes before the Brahmana as if he's very humble and sincere, and says, my dear Brahmana, please, I think I've committed a serious sin, and I need your help. You have to tell me. Just like, in Christianity, in the Catholic Church also, they go to the priest and they confess their sins, and he gives some method to be relieved. So the Brahmana says, oh, so what have you done? "Oh, I accidentally stepped on a spider, killed it." Then the Brahmana said, "Oh, this is very serious." And the Brahmana then proposes 1 month of penance, and he said, "I will have to perform yajna for you every day of that month, and of course you'll have to give me the dakshin for all this. I'll chant mantras for you." And so, as I said, this man is being clever. So he said, "Oh, so 1 month, and you'll do yajna, chant mantras every day for me, and obviously I'll have to pay you a lot." That's what you say. "But you know, Vipraji, isn't it a few weeks ago your own son stepped on a spider? I don't remember that he had to do those things." Then the Brahmana, and then he looks up in some big book. "Oh yes, you're right, yes, it's not such a serious thing." And so the man has caught the Brahmana because all he wants to really do is just make money. You see? So this is Bhaktivinoda Thakur kind of ridiculing that smarter Brahmin system. So anyway, the Suraburi Roy, he approached Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and asked him, "What shall I do?" And Mahaprabhu said, "You go to Vrindavan. Go to Vrindavan and you stay there. And you chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra constantly." Yeah, now here, Lord Brahma says that you may have killed a Brahmana, you may have killed a great Kshatriya, you may have stolen gold, Pitadeva Manushanam Pakarat, you may have done harm to forefathers or to other human beings. So he says that you should chant Japa, Hare Krishna Mahamantra, 35 million times. Now, that if you chant 16 rounds a day, with the intention of reaching 35 million Mahamantras, that will take you 55 years. So what he's doing is prescribing practically a whole lifetime of chanting Hare Krishna. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also told Subodhi Roy, you go to Vrindavan and you stay there and you chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra constantly. Just keep chanting. And then he said, when you approach purity in your chanting, and of course that takes time. Srila Prabhupada himself, we take this as an instructive statement by His Divine Grace. We take that Srila Prabhupada is a Nitya Siddha Vaishnava. But he himself said it took him 30 years of chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra daily before he was actually to reach the pure state. This is, as I said, don't misunderstand this. Prabhupada, when he speaks like that, is speaking for our instruction. But if Srila Prabhupada says it took me 30 years, then we should expect that it will take us 55 years, like Brahma says. It will take us more time. And so Mahaprabhu said, then when you come to the point of chanting purely, then all of these sins, they will drop away. They cannot hold you back in your spiritual life, going back home, back to Godhead. So Brahmaji is saying the same thing. Take it seriously, in other words. Of course, someone may come up with a quote, well, but it says, if you chant Hare Krishna one time, then you destroy more sins than possible to commit. But that sort of statement is to be understood as an exceptional statement. It can happen, but Krishna must make it happen. You see, that will be for someone who is especially favored by Krishna's mercy. We cannot assume that statement applies to us. We should never do that. Just like you were asking this morning also. And can someone become Krishna conscious simply by shiksha, not by taking diksha, initiation, just shiksha, instruction? And my answer was, by Krishna's grace, anything is possible. You see? We find in Puranas the story of a mouse that ran up on the altar at night, and there was a big ghee lamp. It's kind of very big ghee lamp that they have in the great temples, especially in South India. So this ghee lamp was sputtering, not burning properly, and about to go out. And the mouse came there, smelling the ghee and thinking, here's food. So the mouse stuck his nose into the ghee lamp, touched the wick with his nose, and moving the wick then caused the fire to flare up again. And thereafter the lamp was burning properly, nicely. But that flaring up killed the mouse. The mouse died. So Puranas say, this mouse, the soul of this mouse went back to Vaikuntha directly. Don't pass go. Don't collect $200. Go directly back home, back to Godhead. So that's exceptional. That's wonderful. But we cannot make such, a plan out of such a story for ourselves. Oh, if a mouse can go back to Godhead, I can go back to Godhead some extraordinary way. No, it is. This is kripa. Kripa siddhi. Perfection by special mercy. So just like Prabhupada gives the example, sometimes a university will honor a person. It often happens during wartime. If a person has done very exceptional in the battlefield, comes back a hero, then he's honored by society. And one of the ways he may be honored is that a university will give him what they call an honorary degree. Honorary BA, MA, PhD. Because he's become famous in another way. So without attending university, he gets a degree. But if, suppose you're a young man in high school and now you're faced, what will you do after high school? Will you go to university or will you do something else? And you're being told, well, it's very important to get university degree. You can do better in life if you have university degree. But the young man he's more adventurous. So he says, no. This person, that person, they were given honorary degree, so I'll do like that. But this is not very guaranteed. If someone thinks I'll get university degree in that way, just he plans his life for that, then he is probably going to be disappointed. Probably he's just fooling himself. So, therefore, Lord Brahma in this verse, he's telling us, take it seriously. Because now, Kali Yuga, yes, we all have sinful background. Everyone born in this age, just by our very birth here, is proving that we're very sinful. So Lord Brahma is not saying, yes, just chant Hare Krishna a few times and everything will be all right. These sahajas like to do that. These sahajas are such nonsense people that they say that deliberately don't follow any regulative principles and chant Hare Krishna to show your full faith in the holy name. Make sure that you're not following any regulative principles, because that means you're having faith in something else. No. This is very poor logic. If the holy name is Krishna himself, then Krishna is the purest of the pure, and Krishna comes into our life by the grace of Guru and Krishna, then we should welcome Krishna. We should show loving respect and honor to Krishna by trying to live as purely as we can, even in this dark age of Kali Yuga. And as Prabhupada always said, that's not so difficult. Following 4 regulative principles is not so difficult. Chanting at least 16 rounds Maha Mantra every day is not so difficult. This is not so demanding. It's, Not like being asked to drink hot ghee till you die. This you can do. And this is the proper way to welcome the Lord into our life. So it's not a cheap thing. So therefore Brahma is saying, he's giving this 35 million Mahamantras formula as a means of overcoming any type of sin one may have committed. And this 35 millions, as we have calculated, it means a lifetime of chanting Hare Krishna, which is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told Subodhi Roy. Go to Vrindavan, stay there, and chant the holy name constantly. Kirtaniya Sadahari. Then, the last verse, text 11. Sarvadama parityaga papat sadhya suchitama puyat sadyumuchite iti Upanishad. Sarva, all dharma, religious duties, parityaga, neglecting, papat, from the sins, sadhya, immediately, suchitam, purity, apuyat, certainly attain, sadhyo, immediately, muchyate, becomes free from, sadhyo, immediately, muchyate, becomes free from, iti Upanishad, this Upanishad. By chanting this Mahamantra, one certainly attains purity immediately from sins caused by neglecting all religious duties. This is the Upanishad. Please repeat. By chanting this Mahamantra, one certainly attains purity. Immediately from sins caused by neglecting all religious duties. This is the Upanishad. This is interesting, last verse, because it begins very reminiscently of what is known as the Charan Shloki of the Bhagavad Gita. That's chapter 18, verse 66. Charan Shloki means the pinnacle, the peak slok of the whole Gita. What the whole Gita is building up to is one verse which begins Sarvadharma Parityaja Mamekam Sharanam Braja. Here Krishna is saying that give up all varieties of dharma and just do one thing, surrender unto me. Now here the language is just a little bit different, and it's in a way almost ironical, because Krishna is saying give up all dharma. Here Sarvadharma Parityaga, Krishna says Sarvadharma Parityaja. It's the same word but in a different form. Krishna is saying do this, but Parityaga means you've done it. Parityaga means you have already given up all dharma. So the verse is now saying, now completing what Krishna says, Mamekam Sharanam Braja, surrender to me. This verse is saying how you can surrender to Krishna. You see, you don't have to worry about giving up all other dharma, because by being here in Kali Yuga, that's already done. You see? That's not your concern now, how you will give up dharma. Because there is no dharma in this age, except for the chanting of Hare Krishna. Everything else is just, there are 5 kinds of adharma mentioned. So chala dharma, cheating dharma, and pretentious dharma, and dharma which is unrealistic. In other words, one may be strictly following something, but that thing that he's following is not going to give him what he wants anyway. It's unworkable, unpracticable in this age. So there are different types of dysfunctional dharma. But real dharma then is only the chanting of a holy name. So this is how we can follow Lord Krishna's instructions. Sarvadharma Parityaja, that you've done already just by being here in Kali Yuga. Mamekam sharanam braja. He says, then you surrender to me. And then he goes on to say, Ham tam sarva papebhyo mokshe sami masucha. You don't worry if you surrender to me, because